So the first thing that needs to be done is to identify all the expressions. An expression is just part of the code that will generate a value. That might be a number, a string, or a boolean value. So sometimes it's just a constant, as in here, so I'm drawing a box around all the expressions. In this case it's the number 0. Sometimes it's something you type in at the keyboard. So here we're typing in a number at the keyboard. I said it could be a boolean variable, so here there's an expression which will generate something as either true or false. In this case the expression is next input is not equal to -1, so exclamation mark equal means not equal to. Sometimes the expression is a calculation, as it is here, where we're adding two variables together. We've got another expression here, which again is getting something in from the keyboard. Again, it's a number. And then finally, we've got an expression that works out a value to send to the display. In this case, it's simply a variable that gets sent to the display. The next step in tracing the execution is to show the flow of control, and we do that by drawing in arrows. Basically, we start at the top and work our way down. So the first instruction we come to there is set total to 0. We continue on down the program. At this stage we reach a loop, a while loop. So there are two possibilities here. Either this boolean expression is true or it's false. If it's true, we work our way through the stuff in the loop until we get to the end while, at which point we go back up to check the expression again to see if we continue in the loop. So that's what happens if it's true. If the boolean expression is false, then what we do is we go to after the end while and continue on with the next instruction. I'm just going to label this with F for false because that's the route we take if the boolean expression is false. So we're now going to hand execute the program. In other words, we're going to step through it bit by bit on paper, as it were, and work out what happens when we type in various values. And the three values I'm going to type in when the program asks us are up here, first 20, and then 7, and then finally -1. And so as the program asks for input from the keyboard, it's these three values I'm going to enter. So the first thing we do is we're at step 1, so we label the arrow that we're at step 1, and we have a look therefore at the first statement. The first statement says set total to 0. In other words, we create a variable called total, so we write that into the variable table over here, and we're noting that at step 1 we're setting the value in that variable to 0. So notice I'm recording that this happens at step 1. It's step 1 that we've labelled the arrow over here, and what happens is the value 0 is placed into that variable. So I'll do that as I go along. I will note where things happen as well as what happens. So we now move on to step 2. So the first thing we do is we label the arrow that we've moved on to step 2, and in this case what we're doing, we're receiving something from the keyboard. Well, what do we type in at the keyboard? Well, we said up here that when we were asked for input, first we would input a 20, then a 7, and then a -1. So this is the first time we've been asked for input, so we're going to type in 20. And what happens to that? Well, we've got a variable called next input, so we label another column in the variables table with that variable name, and then what we note is that at step 2 we put the value 20 into that variable. Why 20? Because as I said already, when asked for input, the first thing we said we were going to type was 20. So we're now at step 3, so the first thing we do is we label the arrow 3 because we're at step 3, and what we come to is the command while next input not equal to -1 do. So we have to evaluate this expression to see whether it's true or false, so that's why we fill in over here the expression evaluator column what it is we're trying to do. So we label it first of all step 3 because we're doing it at step 3, and then we put the expression we want to evaluate. In this case, next input is not equal to -1. So the first thing we have to do is work out what the current value of next input is. So we look up at the table here, the variables table, we look at the next input column, and we see that the current value of next input is in fact 20. You'll notice that I've put in brackets here 3, because what we're doing is at step 3 we are looking to see what the current value of next input is. It's in brackets because we're not changing the value, we are just looking to see what the current value is. So we take 20, which is the current value of next input, we substitute it into the expression down here, and we get the statement 20 not equal to -1, and we want to know, is that true or false? Well, 20 doesn't equal -1, and therefore this statement is in fact true, which means we will continue down following the true route through the program. So we're now at step 4. So the first thing is we label the true route as 4 because we've worked out that this is true. Next input does not equal -1, so we go down the true branch. And the first thing we come to is another expression that has to be evaluated, and once we've evaluated the expression we assign it to a variable. So first of all, the expression evaluation. We're doing this at step 4, so we label in the expression evaluator column 4, and then the expression we wish to evaluate, in this case total plus next input. So how do we do that? Well, we need to see what the current value of total is, so we look up here at the variables table and we see in the total column that the current total is 0. And again we put in brackets 4 here because we're doing that at step 4, so the 0 gets substituted instead of total down here. Next input, look up again at the variables table. Next input is currently 20, so we put the 20 in here instead of next input, and so what we're evaluating that as 0 plus 20, which in this case equals 20. Now that we've evaluated it as 20, what do we do with it? Well, we take the result of that expression and we put it into the variable total. So what we do therefore is we say that used to be 0, but it is now going to be something else. And that something else is 20, so we note that here at step 4 we've scored out 0 because it is now 20. So we're now at step 5, so we continue on down. We come to another expression. In this case we're getting something in from the keyboard. What do we type in? Well, we've already typed in the 20, so the next thing to type in is the 7. So we're going to enter 7 at the keyboard and store that into next input. In other words, it used to be 20 in next input, but we're scoring that out and we're going to replace it with the number 7. So there we are, we've step 5. Used to be 20, it's now scored out, and we've put a 7 in there instead. So we're now at step 6, and what happens here is obviously we go down, we hit the end while, which sends us back up to the while where we have to check this expression again. So over here in the expression evaluator we're at step 6 and we're checking next input not equal to -1. So it's exactly the same process as before. We look at next input in the table up here and we find the current value of next input is 7. So again, bracket 6 means we're checking that at step 6. So next input is 7, so the question we're asking is 7 not equal to -1. 7 is not equal to -1, so that statement is true. So in other words, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to continue down the true route. So here we are, we're now at step 7, we've evaluated this as true, so we've come down the true again. Notice it was step 4, but we're coming down it again at step 7, so the 4 and the 7 are side by side because we're just tracing through the route again. So step 7, we're back to evaluating this expression here, total plus next input. So over here, step 7, total plus next input. What is total currently? It's 20. What is next input currently? It's 7. And so we're evaluating 20 plus 7 to 27. Once we've evaluated it, what do we do with the result of that? Well, what we're saying is that the variable total will now become the result of that expression. In other words, we will set total to be 27. So in other words, we will score out what total used to be. Total used to be 20, so we've scored that out. And instead of 20, it's now been replaced with the expression we evaluated here, so it is now 27. Step 7, total is set to 27. So we're now at step 8, so we've continued on down. So we're back at this place again, where we get something else in from the keyboard. So what do we type in at the keyboard? We've already typed in 20, we've already typed in 7, so now we're typing in -1. So from the keyboard, -1 gets put into the variable next input. So where is that? Well, up here, step 8, next input is now -1. So it used to be 7, but it is now -1. So we're almost there. Basically what we're doing is we are continuing down from here. So step 9, hits end while, brings us up to the top. So again, the last time we did this we were at step 6, but we're doing it again. We're now at step 9, and so once again we're evaluating this expression here. So we say step 9, next input not equal to -1. What is the current value of next input? We look up here, current value is -1, so we're saying -1 not equal to -1. Well, -1 does equal -1, so at last we've hit false, and that means that the next step we will do is we will follow the false to the next statement. So here we are at the final stage. We've followed the false down to step 10, and the last thing we have to do, the last statement we have to obey, is send total to display. So we have to, at step 10, look at what's currently, there's step 10, look at what's currently in total. In this case it's 27, so in this case 27 will be sent to the display. So what this program does, we've worked it out with these test inputs, is basically it will keep taking number inputs, first 20 and then 7 and anything else you type, add them together. In other words, it's going to keep a running total in this loop, and when we eventually enter -1, it will tell us what all the things we've entered added together are equal to. In this case, 20 plus 7 is 27.